but many officials still gathered upon hearing it. Some came to offer condolences with heavy hearts, while others had different motives. The Grand General of the Supreme State has arrived. The Grand General of the Sentinel has arrived. Two shouts echoed from the entrance, and two middle-aged men in combat gear, each leading a troop of soldiers with menacing swords at their waists, swaggered in. These soldiers looked fierce and had an evil glint in their eyes. Everett Cade and Shane Gilby, holding the ranks of Grand General of the Supreme State and Grand General of the Sentinel, respectively, entered Grandiosity. Generals, you must disarm before entering the castle. A castle guard told Everett and Shane, bowing respectfully. Humph, I've never taken off my combat gear when going out. Get lost. Everett sneered. General Cade, it's a rule of the castle. Please comply, the castle guard insisted. Rule, screw your rules. He slapped the guard's face, scoffing. Who do you think you are? Daring to use rules to suppress me? Are you tired of living? General Cade, I am just following orders. The castle guard stood firm. Quit the damn nonsense. Get out of my way, or I'll chop off your head. Everett drew his sword, holding it at the guard's neck, looking extremely domineering. Even if you chop off my head, you still have to follow the rules. The castle guard remained unyielding. You damn dog. I bet you won't give up until you see the gallows. Everett was enraged. He raised his sword and slashed at the guard's arm. Stop! A sharp rebuke echoed, and Eloise, dressed in simple black attire, accompanied by Jackson and others, rushed over. Everett, how dare you draw your sword in the castle? Have you no respect for the castle rules? Eloise rebuked angrily. Your Highness, Everett quickly sheathed his sword, bowing slightly, and then forced a smile. Your Highness, I was just joking. How could I actually intend harm? Joking. She snorted. If I had arrived a moment later, that guard's arm might already be severed. Your Highness, I was just teasing this young fellow. I had no intention of hurting him. Everett grinned insincerely. Yeah, Your Highness, Everett here has a peculiar temperament. Please don't take it too hard. Shane, who had been watching from the sidelines, finally spoke up. General Gilby is here too. Eloise glanced around, coldly saying, two generals, clad in combat gear, armed with swords, brazenly broke into the castle. Are you planning a rebellion? With this statement, Everett and Shane's expressions instantly changed. Everett's and Shane's expressions instantly changed at those words. Their initial intention to display authority now clashed with Eloise's unexpected assertiveness, immediately casting them as rebels. The potential consequences of such a charge were severe, and leaving the castle gates alive would be doubtful. Shane hastened to explain, Your Highness, please don't joke. It's an exaggeration to call it a rebellion. Even if you give us the courage, we wouldn't dare undertake such a thing. Exactly, our loyalty to His Highness has always been unwavering. Why would we commit treason? Everett added. Though both harbored a hint of ambition, it was clear they were not ready to reveal it openly. At least, the timing wasn't right. If you're not planning a rebellion, why come armed? Don't you understand the rules? Eloise scolded mercilessly. They were just two second-rate generals, relying on military power yet daring to act insolently within the castle. When His Highness was alive, would they have dared to be so audacious? Oh, my apologies. I forgot about the castle rules. Everett chuckled, then removed his gear and handed his sword to the castle guard. He went on, We came in a hurry and didn't think much. It was an oversight, but Your Highness has a big heart, and I believe you won't mind. We rushed here and didn't consider much. It was unintentional, Your Highness, and I believe you won't hold it against us. Double quotes. Shane smiled, promptly removing his gear and sword. Eloise's expression slightly eased at their actions, though her tone remained cold. Why did the two generals suddenly come? What is the purpose? We heard about the attempt on His Highness's life, so we came to inquire after his health. Shane pretended to be concerned. Your information is accurate but late, Eloise replied coldly. Wait, what do you mean? Both acted confused. Eloise didn't bother explaining. She turned and walked away, heading straight for the memorial hall. Though there was no commotion outside the castle, the white flags and her simple black dress attire made it clear something had happened. These two were obviously pretending to be ignorant. She had no patience for their nonsense. "Let's go follow her and see." Everett and Shane exchanged a glance, then followed Eloise into the memorial hall. Inside the hall, several people were still kneeling. Rufus's body lay peacefully in the coffin. Upon entering the hall, Everett and Shane felt slightly relieved. They had only received the news before and couldn't confirm it. Now, seeing it with their own eyes, they could finally put their anxious hearts to rest. Of course, although relieved, they had to maintain appearances. What? His Highness is dead. How could this happen? After seeing the portrait, Everett exaggerated his expression, feigning grief. His Highness was blessed and destined for greatness. How could he die? With that, Everett suddenly threw himself at the coffin, starting to wail dramatically. "Your Highness, how tragic it is for you. It's all because I arrived too late to save you, failing to protect your safety. I'm truly ashamed. Your Highness, you're still the lord of the castle and the ruler of West Lucosia. How can you leave us like this? Your Highness, wake up, wake up." Everett continued his display, shedding not a single tear. It was an act. The performance was too apparent. Eloise watched coldly, showing no reaction. "Your Highness, you will be remembered fondly," Shane exclaimed loudly as he fell to his knees, bowing. His eyes welled with tears, looking like he was in pain at just having lost a loved one. Although it was an act, it was much more convincing than Everett's. General Reese of the Iron Stallion Cavalry has arrived. Right then, they heard a loud announcement from the door. Following closely, a heroic-looking, middle-aged man walked in imposingly. He carried various weapons with him and was clad in golden armor. This person was none other than the Iron Stallion Cavalry's first ranking, Grand General Julius Reese. Julius Reese was not only the Grand General of the Iron Stallion Cavalry, but also Rufus' cousin. From a young age, he excelled in both the literary and martial arts, displaying exceptional talent in various aspects. If not for Rufus' existence, he would have been the Reese family's most outstanding genius. Unfortunately, in the face of an unparalleled hero like Rufus, even the most formidable talents would pale in comparison. "Greetings, Grand General Reese." Upon seeing Julius, both Everett and Shane dropped their affected demeanor and bowed respectfully. Both of them held influential positions due to Julius' support and were his most trusted generals. Similar to the dynamics between Rufus and Jackson, they went through triumphs and challenges together. Julius ignored his two trusted aides and dropped to his knees as soon as he entered the funeral hall. With reddened eyes and trembling lips, his expression was a mix of sorrow and resentment. How could this happen? How could Rufus have died? Who did this? Julius roared in anger. It was the remnants of the Dragon Guard. They sent assassins to infiltrate the castle and assassinated Rufus last night. Eloise's face showed a mix of emotions. The Dragon Guard? Julius gritted his teeth in anger and roared, "Guards, gather all the troops and search the entire city. We must capture the killers and bring them to justice." "Wait," Eloise stopped him. "Julius, I know you're deeply saddened, but we can't afford to escalate things right now. My brother is already dead. There's no more reason to be afraid. The killers must pay for what they have done." Julius exclaimed in anger. "It is because Rufus has passed away that we need to remain calm." Eloise's expression was grave. The situation within West Lucosia is not stable yet. Once news of Rufus' death spreads out, it will inevitably have a huge impact and potentially even trigger a war. West Lucosia will be plunged into chaos by then. Then what should we do? We can't just let the killer go free, can we? Julius was indignant. "I've already sent Albert to investigate. You don't need to worry about it." Eloise shook her head and continued. You command half of West Lucosia's military forces as the Grand General of the Iron Stallion Cavalry. What we need from you now is to stop the internal strife and stabilize the situation. Eloise, the Black Dragon Army only obeys Rufus' orders, even though I am the Grand General in title. I won't be able to mobilize the Black Dragon Army without the military insignia. It might be difficult for me to deal with any trouble that arises. Julius looked troubled. That's right, Your Highness. I think it would be better to entrust the insignia to Grand General Reese. It would ensure the security of the castle. Shane echoed. Indeed, it is said that a nation cannot be without a leader for a day, and an army cannot be without a commander for a day. Now that His Highness has departed, only Grand General Reese is fit to take on the role of Grand Marshal, Everett stated in a meaningful tone. Watching the pair, it suddenly dawned on Eloise that they came not to offer their condolences, but to seize power. The Grand Marshal of the West Lucosian Army plays an important role. We need to conduct an internal vote and report to the royal family to decide on a successor. Ultimately, the final decision lies with the royal family. It's not something we can decide on our own, Eloise said, evidently wary against them. She initially assumed Julius had arrived due to his familial ties with Rufus. However, a few words from Everett and Shane made her realize that the situation was more complex than she had thought. Julius' reputation in the Black Dragon Army was second only to Rufus. As the Grand General of the Iron Stallion Cavalry, he had numerous trusted aides and commanded half of the military might. With Rufus' demise, Julius was undoubtedly the primary beneficiary. What caught Eloise's attention was Julius' unmistakable display of ambition. His eagerness to seize power immediately after Rufus' death raised suspicions about his true intentions. Eloise even contemplated the possibility that they had colluded with the remnants of the Dragon Guard, contributing to Rufus' death. If that were the case, the consequences would be unimaginable once Julius gained full control of the military. Your Highness, urgent situations demand swift action. Given the current situation, there's no time to wait for the royal family's decision. We must expedite the process to bring stability, Everett emphasized. That's right. Shane nodded, agreeing with Everett. Without a general leading the army, there would be a lack of order among the troops. The royal family is unaware of the situation and won't be able to make a timely decision. We must take control to not give our enemies an opportunity, even if we don't report to the royal family. An internal vote is necessary to gain the support of the troops, Eloise added. A vote? Is that even necessary? Who else is more fitting to be the Grand Marshal other than Grand General Reese? Everett stated. That's right, Your Highness. In terms of achievements, prestige, qualifications, and military prowess, no one is comparable to Grand General Reese except for His late Highness. The title of Grand Marshal undoubtedly belongs to Grand General Reese, Shane insisted. I still think it's too hasty. We can defer the selection of the next Grand Marshal for a more appropriate time. Let's first resolve the troubles within the castle before discussing it further. Eloise tried to change the subject. She had to admit that Julius was indeed the second most influential person within the Black Dragon Army after Rufus. However, if he was truly conspiring with the remnants of the Dragon Guard, his appointment as Grand Marshal could lead nefarious elements into the heart of the monarchy, posing a serious threat. The turmoil in the castle persists because there has been a lack of authority to reign in the chaos. With Grand General Reese taking command, who would dare act recklessly? Shane asserted with a touch of arrogance. Precisely. With Grand General Reese at the helm, we can promptly apprehend the culprit and avenge His late Highness. Simultaneously, we can restore stability to West Lucosia and deter any potential threats. It's a flawless strategy. Shane continued to commend Julius. Eloise frowned as she watched them persist in their arguments. With Julius currently holding substantial power, she didn't dare offend him either. If he really decided to turn against them, no one would be able to stop him. Your Highness, why are you still hesitating? If His late Highness were still alive, he would surely agree to this. Everett began urging Eloise. Rufus just passed away. Let's wait until after the funeral before deciding anything else, Eloise said sternly. This matter can't wait any longer. What if the remnants of the Dragon Guard attack again? Your life might be in danger, Everett emphasized. 1. That's right, Your Highness. Right now, we can only rely on Grand General Reese. We have no other option. You should come to a decision as soon as possible, Shane added. The two echoed each other, and their words carried a hint of threat. As for Julius, he remained silent, ignoring the fuss his subordinates were making. With Rufus dead, there was no one left in West Lucosia who could restrain him. If the remnants of the Dragon Guard dare act, I will kill them all. At that moment, a cold and stern voice suddenly rang out from the entrance of the funeral hall. The crowd turned around and saw a young man dressed in all black, entering with a determined and solemn expression. His very presence emitted a commanding aura that, even those experienced on the battlefield, like Everett and Shane, adopted a serious demeanor. The newcomer was none other than Austin, Rufus' youngest son. Austin was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, living a pampered life that earned him the title of being West Lucosia's top playboy. However, over the past 2 years, Austin seemed to have undergone a remarkable transformation. He no longer spent his days in leisure, choosing instead to join the military and pursue excellence. At first, everyone believed that Austin wouldn't last more than 3 days in the military. After all, how could the pampered prince endure the hardships of the army? Surprisingly, Austin not only endured but also excelled. In just 2 years, he rose from a common soldier to becoming the deputy general in the Black Dragon Army. Despite his privileged upbringing, his accomplishments were undeniably impressive. Only then did people realize that Austin wasn't merely a pampered playboy but a true military genius with outstanding talent. Austin, you've returned at last. Eloise's eyes welled with tears upon seeing her son. The suppressed sadness finally overwhelmed her. Mom, I know everything already. Don't worry. Let me handle this, Austin assured his mother before directing his attention to Everett and Shane. Generals, my father has just passed away. Is it appropriate for both of you to force your opinions here? Everett exchanged a glance with Shane and awkwardly replied, Your Highness, please don't misunderstand. We're just considering the bigger picture. We still need someone to take charge, or there will be numerous troubles. That's right, Your Highness. We're only thinking of the greater good, Shane added, feigning loyalty. The greater good, Austin sneered, then shifted his gaze to Julius instead. Uncle Julius, don't you have anything to say? Rufus' death deeply saddens me, but we cannot dwell in grief. The people of West Lucosia still need us. While speaking, Julius approached the coffin and fixed his eyes on Rufus' lifeless body. His voice was choked with emotion as he said, I believe my brother would want us to protect the castle and the people of West Lucosia. Though I may not match my brother's skills, I hope to fulfill his wishes by contributing in my own way. Julius had chosen his words carefully, taking a righteous stance that made it difficult for others to dispute. He portrayed his intention to assume the position as a commitment to the well-being of West Lucosia's citizens. Anyone who opposed him would be perceived as harboring ill intentions and neglecting the people. Uncle Julius, while I agree with you, my father had already designated the new Grand Marshal before his passing. I'm afraid you'll have to be disappointed, Austin said calmly. Julius frowned. A decision has already been made. Who is it? Your Highness, you don't mean yourself, do you? Everett scrutinized him and continued sarcastically. Forgive me for being rude, but despite your exceptional qualities, your qualifications, capabilities, and prestige still fall short of Grand General Reese. If you assume the position of Grand Marshal, I'm afraid the people of West Lucosia won't accept it. I agree. I don't have what it takes to assume the position of Grand Marshal. But there is someone who does, Austin declared loudly. Oh, who would that be? Everett asked. The Reese family's Kieran, Logan Reese. Austin dropped a bombshell. Logan Reese? Austin's declaration engulfed the scene with silence. Once upon a time, the Reese family's Kieran was renowned throughout the world. However, he had disappeared ever since the turmoil in Ilka 10 years ago. There had been no news of him since .1. Now, with his name suddenly brought up, everyone was astonished. Your Highness, is this a joke? His Highness, Prince Logan, is still missing. No one knows where he is. It's utter nonsense to suggest him as the next Grand Marshal of West Lucosia. Everett shrugged. That right, Your Highness. Let's be practical. It's better to rely on Grand General Reese instead of pinning our hopes on Prince Logan. Shane chimed in. They had thought Austin was referring to himself, but he brought up someone who had been missing for 10 years instead. It sounded like utter gibberish. With Father's demise, Logan will definitely return. It would be perfectly reasonable for him to take up the position of Grand Marshal then. Austin declared coldly, Your Highness, please forgive me for being blunt. But what if Prince Logan has already met his end out there? Are we going to leave the position of Grand Marshal of the West Lucosian army empty forever? Everett retorted sarcastically. My brother is alive and well, so you do not need to worry about that, Austin said. If he's still alive, then where is he? Why hasn't he shown up? Everett made a show of looking around. I've sent him a message. I trust that he will be back in time, Austin replied. Your Highness, you're not stalling for time, are you? Everett spoke meaningfully. You should know that once news of His Highness Prince Rufus' death spreads, West Lucosia will be in turmoil. We don't have the luxury of waiting for him. We must decide on someone who can stabilize the situation right now. Exactly, Your Highness. We must prioritize the overall situation. Shane advised seriously. To have Logan ascend to the throne was my father's last wish. Are all of you trying to defy his wishes? Austin's gaze turned cold, and he gave off an imposing air. Everett and Shane felt an inexplicable sense of guilt and turned their gazes to Julius. After all, the ultimate decision was in his hands. We will naturally comply with Rufus' last wish. But what if Logan is unwilling to take on the throne? Julius said impassively. Uncle Julius, you won't need to worry about that. We'll talk about this again after Logan's return, Austin stated firmly. We can wait. But the remnants of the Dragon Guard and the sovereigns may not have the same patience. If something were to happen, who would bear this responsibility? Julius countered. If anything happens, I will take responsibility and resolve everything. Don't worry about it, Uncle Julius, said Austin. Very well. Since you're so confident, I'll wait and see what happens. Julius' gaze grew cold. I still have military affairs to attend to and need to take my leave. I'll visit Rufus again tomorrow. Farewell. With that, he turned around and went straight out the door. Your Highness, Princess Eloise, Your Highness, Prince Austin. We'll also take our leave, Everett and Shane. Didn't say anything more and turned to follow Julius. Austin, thank God you returned just in time. Otherwise, these people would have created a big disturbance, Eloise said with a slight frown. Uncle Julius has harbored ambitions for years, lying low and waiting for the right moment. With Father's sudden demise, he'll undoubtedly seize this opportunity to consolidate his power. This matter is far from over, Austin stated with a grave expression. You're absolutely right. Even if they yielded publicly, they'll resort to cunning schemes. We're likely to face numerous challenges ahead, Eloise sighed. If Rufus had not met such an abrupt end, these individuals wouldn't have dared to act so brazenly. If only Logan were here, Austin lamented. Austin, your abilities are no less than Logan's. I believe you can achieve what he accomplished as well. Eloise encouraged. Mom, I'm aware of my abilities. In many aspects, I still fall short compared to Logan, Austin shook his head. Don't underestimate yourself. Eloise's voice turned serious. Your father has passed away. After the funeral, I'll immediately report to the royal family for your ascension to the throne. You will be the Prince of West Lucosia. This is a weighty responsibility that you must bear. Mom, the throne rightfully belongs to Logan. I've never thought about inheriting it. Only Logan is worthy of being named the Prince of West Lucosia, Austin declared firmly. Austin, you can decline other responsibilities, but not this one, Eloise exclaimed sternly. Do you realize how many people dream of holding this position? Once you miss out on it, you will regret it for life. I won't regret my decision. I'm not interested in power. I prefer a life of freedom rather than enduring the burdens. Father-faced, Austin shook his head. What was the use of being a prince? It was a position that came with a multitude of troubles. He would rather live a carefree life and relish each day. Foolish son, things are not as simple as you think. You were able to live freely before because of your father's protection. Now that he's gone, if you don't assert your position, you'll end up in misery. Eloise spoke earnestly. As the eldest princess of Dragon Marsh, she had grown up witnessing the political deceits and power struggles. Some individuals would go to any lengths, even betraying family, to pursue power. That was the driving force behind her fear of her son meeting a tragic fate. It was also the reason she wished for him to claim the throne. Real power lay only in one person's hands. The rest was inconsequential. The winner had the last laugh, while the loser suffered misfortune. Mom, I understand your concerns, but I believe Logan is not driven by power and greed, Austin asserted confidently. Austin, you can't be entirely sure of that. Eloise grew anxious. You shouldn't gamble your life on Logan's goodwill. Once you lose the gamble, it'll be too late. If Logan wanted to harm me, I would have been dead a long time ago. I would have never survived until today. Austin shook his head. Besides, if Logan is really power-hungry, my fate would be the same even if I take the throne. Instead of fighting each other, it'll be better for me to step back willingly. Why are you so stubborn? Eloise was frustrated. Mom, you should face reality. The rightful title of Prince of West Lucosia belongs to Logan. We should be supporting his ascension instead of fighting internally. Otherwise, it will only play into the hands of the ambitious, Austin said solemnly. I don't know what more to say to convince you. You'll come to understand in the future, Eloise sighed, choosing not to press the matter further. Her son was as stubborn as his father. Once they set their minds on something, it was pointless to change their stance. Austin would likely only understand her well-intentioned advice through first-hand experience. Meanwhile, at the castle gates, Julius and his entourage were walking out in haste. After they left the castle, Everett spoke up. Grand General Rhys, Eloise, and her son are truly ungrateful. Are we simply going to let this matter slide? Of course not, but we can't act too overtly either. Most commanders of the Black Dragon Army are loyal to the monarchy. It won't be advantageous for us to start a conflict, Julius replied, his eyes narrowing. Then what should we do? Everett asked again. Since we can't make a move openly, we'll apply pressure on them discreetly. Julius stated meaningfully, once turmoil erupts in West Lucosia and the monarchy faces imminent danger, they'll naturally realize who's the true pillar of support for the monarchy. I understand. I'll arrange for people to stir up trouble immediately. When the people's grievances peak and the monarchy can't manage, you'll emerge as their savior. At that moment, West Lucosia's citizens will be grateful, naturally electing you as the new Prince of West Lucosia. Everett caught on swiftly. Not bad. You're pretty smart. When I ascend to the throne, the position of Grand General of the Iron Stallion Cavalry will be yours. Julius nodded with a smile. Everett's face brightened. Thank you, Grand General Rhys. Go ahead and take care of it. The sooner, the better. Make sure not to leave any traces, Julius instructed. No problem. I'll make sure to handle things with finesse. Everett saluted and left promptly. Grand General Reese, merely causing a disturbance might not be sufficient to shake the monarchy's foundation. We need something impactful, Shane reminded him. I'm well aware of that, Julius nodded. I've been in the shadows for many years, cultivating a network of confidence. Almost half of the Eat Great sovereigns are my people. Once I issue the order, they will rise without hesitation to assist me. Seems like you've made early preparations. Forgive me for worrying too much, Shane chuckled. No need to worrying. Once I ascend to the throne, you won't be overlooked, Julius said with a smile. Thank you, Grand Gino. That's not right. I should address you as Prince of West Lucosia now, Shane corrected. Julius laughed joyfully at Shane's words. After enduring for 20 years, it's finally my turn to ascend to the throne. Julius was in high spirits, exuding confidence. He believed in his ability to take on such a significant role, since he possessed both literary and military talents. However, he had long been overshadowed by Rufus. With Rufus gone, he saw no competition to claim the throne. He was determined to seize it no matter what. Time passed swiftly, and night descended gradually upon the West Lucosian castle halls, wrapping them in an unusual silence. Eloise, Austin, and a group of monarchy members lingered in the funeral hall, their hearts heavy with grief. Throughout the day, the castle witnessed a continuous stream of visitors. From influential figures like Julius to modest officials, they paid their respects one after another. Despite Eloise's orders to keep Rufus' demise a secret, news of the tragedy managed to circulate. Officials of all ranks were already aware of what had happened. For a while, the entire bureaucratic landscape of West Lucosia was filled with an air of uncertainty and anxiety. The passing of the Prince of West Lucosia, coupled with the absence of a clear successor, cast uncertainty over the future. Even in the event of a new prince's ascent, there was a likelihood of the cards reshuffling, and the very foundation they had diligently laid out would be at risk of crumbling. Panic and fear consumed them. How could they remain unaffected? While many visitors conveyed condolences, their underlying motive was to gauge the political climate. If the situation were indeed taking a turn for the worse, they would have to take a side as soon as possible. That was the only way for the officials to maintain their current positions. Presently, the only person most qualified, capable, and powerful enough to succeed the Prince of West Lucosia was the Grand General of the Iron Stallion Cavalry, Julius Reese. Firstly, being a Reese, Julius was a legitimate member of the royal family, making his claim for the throne unquestionable. Secondly, as the Grand General of the Iron Stallion Cavalry, Julius commanded half of West Lucosia's military forces, wielding significant power. Thirdly, with years of accumulated strength, Julius possessed ample influence, prestige, and accomplishments to ascend to the throne. It wasn't an exaggeration to claim that everyone expected Julius to succeed Rufus. Right after offering their condolences, many officials rushed to the Grand General's residence to pledge their loyalty. These actions naturally didn't escape the monarchy's attention, but Eloise was in no state of mind to concern herself with such matters. Mom, you've been here all day. You should go back to your room and rest. Don't overexert yourself, Austin reminded her after seeing her worried and tired expression. Your father just passed away. How can I think of resting? Eloise shook her head. Exactly. Because father passed away, you should take better care of yourself. The monarchy is in turmoil and needs you, the princess, to take on the responsibilities. You absolutely cannot fall ill, Austin advised sternly. But Eloise wanted to say more, but Austin interrupted her. Mom, listen to me just this one time. Go back to your room and rest. You can come back tomorrow morning. Before Eloise could respond, Austin called for two female attendants and instructed, both of you, escort my mother back home and take good care of her. Yes, Your Highness, the attendants bowed, then helped Eloise up. Eloise stumbled as she got up since her legs had grown numb from sitting too long. Austin, you need to take good care of yourself too. Be careful, Eloise cautioned. Don't worry, I know what to do. Austin nodded. After seeing his mother off, he turned to the group behind him and instructed, "You should all head back as well. I'm going to stay back and keep watch here myself." The group looked at each other, uncertain of what to do. Austin swept them a cold glance. "What? You're not going to listen to me?" The group exchanged silent glances again before excusing themselves. Soon, only Austin and the monarchy's guards were left in the funeral hall. "Hey, you up there on the roof. You've been hiding up there for quite some time now. Don't you think it's time to show yourself?" Austin suddenly said. All he heard was silence. There was no response. "What, do you want my men to bring you down forcefully?" Austin spoke again. A few seconds later, a sudden breeze swept through the funeral hall, and a man dressed in a guard's attire materialized in the hall. "I didn't think you'd be so perceptive. You actually noticed my presence." The man was somewhat surprised. "Who are you? You've got nerve infiltrating the castle." Austin narrowed his eyes, his hand resting on his sword's hilt. His personal guards who were beside him became instantly vigilant, shooting fierce glances at Destin. Instead of speaking, the man took off his mask. Upon seeing the man's face, Austin's eyes widened, registering a look of astonishment. "Logan." Austin was stunned as he watched the man remove his mask. Then his eyes lit up with joy. The man who infiltrated the castle was no stranger. It was Destin, dressed in a guard's attire. "Austin, you've truly come far on your own. You can handle matters independently now," Destin praised, a glint of pride in his eyes as he observed his stepbrother. Having overheard Austin and Eloise's entire conversation, Destin appreciated Austin's trust in him. He acknowledged Eloise's concerns as well. Throughout history, it wasn't uncommon for siblings and family members to vie for power. Eloise's protective instincts for her child were entirely justified. "Logan, when did you return?" Austin asked. "Just 2 days ago," Destin replied. "Do you already know what happened to father?" Austin's voice trembled slightly. Destin glanced at his father's picture near his coffin and nodded in silence. The last time they had met was back in Swinton a year ago. Little did they know that it would be their final farewell. Now Destin was standing in the funeral hall while Rufus lay inside the coffin. Life was truly unpredictable. Destin approached the casket and gazed at Rufus through the half-open lid. Rufus' expression was peaceful, indicating a departure free from suffering. For some reason, as Destin looked at the face he once despised, a wave of sorrow engulfed him. If only he had returned to West Lucosia and met with his father sooner. Perhaps things wouldn't have turned out this way. Why? How did it come to this? Destin's fists involuntarily clenched and his eyes reddened. Logan's father's health had deteriorated over these 2 years. He relied solely on the panacea to sustain his life. The doctor said that father suffered from celestial decay and was nearing his end, rather than a decline into death. This outcome might be considered a form of liberation, Austin said with his voice choked with grief. "Have they caught the murderer?" Destin turned around to ask him. "Albert is investigating the matter." "How about the spy in the castle?" Destin asked again. "We have a suspect, but with the uncertainty surrounding the current situation, I haven't taken any drastic actions to avoid alerting them," Austin said. "Good job. Keep an eye on the spy for now. Once we expose the mastermind, we can apprehend them all at once." Destin nodded. "Logan, since you're back, things will be easier. Father always hoped that you would ascend to the throne. From today onward, you are the Prince of West Lucosia. I'll fetch the royal seal and military insignia immediately," Austin said, ready to leave, but Destin raised his hand to stop him. "Austin, I'm not interested in the throne. Besides, after being away from West Lucosia for 10 years, I'm no longer the person I used to be. You are the rightful heir. Logan, I'm aware of my abilities. I'm not fit to be the Prince of West Lucosia. On the other hand, you are the one who everyone expects to ascend to the throne, and you are the only one who can take up this responsibility. Austin, you're not weaker than me, as long as you put your heart to it." There's nothing you can't do, Dustin insisted. I really can't do it. Logan, the throne belongs to you. Austin was growing anxious. All right, that's enough. We'll talk about this later. With so much trouble we're facing, our immediate priority is to resolve all these issues. Dustin changed the subject. Logan, as long as you take charge and stabilize the situation, I will assist you wholeheartedly, Austin said with utmost sincerity. I can't show myself yet. Dustin shook his head and explained. Julius and his group are still unaware of my return, so they are not on high alert. I can react in time if they harbor any ill intentions. Not to mention, the remnants of the Dragon Guard are still lurking in the shadows. I need to find an opportunity to eliminate them all. I see. Austin quickly grasped the situation and said, I understand. I will act as the spokesperson of the monarchy while you unravel all the conspiracies. Good. It's settled then. Dustin nodded. Oh, right. There's this. Austin suddenly took out a gold emblem and handed it to Dustin. This is my military badge. You'll be able to command 800 of my death warriors with it. It should be of help during a crucial moment. Austin's 800 death warriors were all the cream of the crop. Since the day he was born, his mother had trained them in secret, accumulating strength to prepare for unforeseen circumstances. 20 years later, these warriors had grown into a formidable force. All right, I'll hold on to the badge for now and return it to you later. Dustin accepted. Even though he had Grace's support, it was still not enough to deal with the remnants of the Dragon Guard. With Austin's army, both sides were finally on a level playing field. Austin. Suddenly, they heard someone shout from the door. Eloise had returned, hastily rushing into the funeral hall. Dustin immediately put on his mask and stood to one side, pretending to be a guard. He could be honest with Austin because he trusted him as a brother, but he still didn't trust Eloise fully. Mom, didn't I tell you to go and rest? Why are you back? Austin was puzzled. There's trouble outside. Eloise entered the funeral hall with a grave expression. I just received news that half of the 8 sovereigns have declared their independence and won't obey orders from the monarchy from now on. They've also assembled their armies, preparing for a direct confrontation with the castle. What, declared independence? How dare they? Austin's expression darkened. They've initiated a rebellion right after Father's passing. Do they really think we're easy targets? Mom, fetch me the military insignia. I'm going to lead the troops to suppress them personally. If it were just a minor disturbance, he might have overlooked it. However, with the 4 sovereigns declaring independence, it amounted to an open rebellion. It was an intolerable act. Absolutely not. Eloise quickly stopped him. The 4 sovereigns each control significant military forces. Once a war breaks out, it will inevitably result in a devastating loss of life. Moreover, the Black Dragon army must secure the major fortresses. If internal strife occurs, the Western savages will seize the opportunity to invade. When that happens, the whole West Lucosia will be plunged into dire straits. Then what should we do? Are we just going to let them trample on us? Austin frowned. I've already sent envoys to negotiate. We'll try to appease them as much as possible. After your father's funeral, you will ascend to the throne immediately as the new prince of West Lucosia. If those people have any sense, they will naturally surrender, Eloise stated. Mom, I don't think things are that simple. Austin shook his head. Contemplating, he said, it shouldn't be a coincidence that the 4 sovereigns are rebelling simultaneously. There must be someone manipulating them behind the scenes. They're obviously trying to force us to stand down. Are you suggesting that someone is inciting the simultaneous rebellion of the 4 sovereigns? Eloise frowned. That's right. Austin continued with a solemn expression. Currently, only one person can make the 4 sovereigns obey orders in West Lucosia. Julius. Eloise blurted out. Uncle Julius is an ambitious man and is adept at scheming. He intends to force us to surrender the military insignia through the 4 sovereigns. Austin narrowed his eyes as he analyzed the situation. If we refuse, the four sovereigns would start a rebellion, compelling us to deploy troops to quell the unrest. At that point, he will interfere and hinder our military campaign to ensure we fail. Once our military campaign fails, our prestige will be greatly damaged. When public outcry reaches its peak, he will emerge as the savior, rescuing the people from turmoil and subduing the four sovereigns successfully. By then, he will be hailed by the masses and become an uncrowned king. They say those who win the people's hearts will win the world. The moment Julius achieves prestige similar to father's, he will naturally become the new prince of West Lucosia. What a calculating man! By the end of his analysis, Austin's expression had turned exceptionally grave. Julius' strategy wasn't a conspiracy. It was a well-thought-out plan. Even knowing the ins and outs of the situation, it was still challenging to unravel. Such was the frightening aspect of a well-executed strategy. In that case, Julius must have planned this for a long time, Eloise said with a frown. Now, how do we foil his plan? We can't deploy the army, nor can we recruit enemy support. What should we do? In my opinion, we must unite with the other four sovereigns, along with father's former subordinates, to compete with Julius, Austin suggested. That makes sense, Eloise nodded. I'll send someone to invite the other four sovereigns immediately to discuss this matter together. Mom, let me go personally. It'll show our sincerity better that way, Austin volunteered. It was crucial to obtain the other four sovereigns' support, and he needed to go in person for reassurance. All right, be careful. If anything seems amiss, withdraw immediately, Eloise cautioned. She had to remain at the castle. In the current situation, only her son's appearance would better persuade the other four sovereigns. I understand, Austin nodded, then pointed to a few guards. You guys, come with me. Remember, don't alert anyone. Yes, Your Highness, they responded. Following Austin, they left discreetly through the castle's secret passage, Dustin included. There were spies everywhere, both inside and outside the castle, and walking through the main gate would undoubtedly alert them. After they left the castle, Austin found an inconspicuous car and headed northwest. He was not worried about the few guards he brought, with him leaking news since they were all close, loyal confidants he had grown up together with. Logan, where are you staying? Do you need me to send you home? Austin asked when they were in the car. I'm not going back. I'll accompany you tonight to meet the four sovereigns, Dustin responded. With the current, unpredictable situation, he was worried about sending Austin there alone. All right, then, let's resolve this together, as brothers. Austin gained confidence instantly. Since childhood, Dustin was always been his pillar of support. Whenever he got into trouble, his brother was the first person he sought. And every time, Dustin would save the day. Even though they hadn't seen each other for 10 years, he knew deep down that his brother was still his brother. Nothing ever changed. It was late at night at Summitville. Summitville was a border town in West Lucosia. It was also the Marquis of Sunfire, Wyatt Mitchell's territory. Wyatt was a military general and had fought alongside the Prince of West Lucosia for many years. He achieved numerous merits and was later given the title Marquis of Sunfire, entrusted with guarding the border of West Lucosia. Over the years, he had been diligent and responsible in his duties. Right then, a black SUV came to a stop at the entrance of the Marquis of Sunfire's residence. Dustin, Austin, and a few other people stepped out of the vehicle. Logan, this is the Marquis of Sunfire, Wyatt Mitchell's residence. Austin introduced Wyatt briefly. Wyatt is a loyal and valiant person and has been managing Summitville for many years. He is extremely dedicated in his work. Who's there sneaking around outside? Two guards standing at the entrance quickly noticed the anomaly and shouted. Austin took the lead and approached them, presenting his identification badge. He declared calmly, I am the Prince of West Lucosia's second son, Austin Reese. Prince Austin? Upon seeing his badge, the two guards were frightened and immediately got down on one knee. Please get up. There's no need for the formalities. Austin put away his badge and continued. I have an urgent matter to discuss with Sir Mitchell. Please let him know. Right away, Your Highness. Please wait a moment. One of the guards responded and hurriedly ran inside. Before long, a slightly portly middle-aged man clad in luxurious clothing walked out in haste, followed by a few men. The newcomer was none other than Wyatt Mitchell, the Marquis of Sunfire. Greetings, Uncle Wyatt. Austin was the first to greet him, although he was the prince's son. The person before him was a lord and was a much more respectable figure than he was. The fact that Wyatt came out to greet him was already a considerable show of respect. Austin, what brings you here at such a late hour? Wyatt was puzzled. Uncle Wyatt, there's been an incident involving the monarchy, and we need your help, Austin said with a solemn expression. An incident? What happened? Wyatt frowned. Austin glanced around in silence. Come on in. We can talk inside. Wyatt caught on immediately and invited Austin and his entourage inside. They moved to the main hall, where Wyatt dismissed most of his men, leaving only a handful of confidants in attendance. Austin, can you share the details now? Wyatt asked. Uncle Wyatt, let me explain. Austin recounted the unfolding events. Wyatt's expression shifted dramatically after hearing Austin. What? Prince Rufus was assassinated, and 4 of the 8 sovereigns rebelling. That's right, Austin nodded gravely. I had heard whispers about Prince Rufus' assassination, but dismissed it as baseless gossip. I can't believe it's true. Wyatt frowned, and his expression hardened. Rufus' death would undoubtedly thrust West Lucosia into a state of turmoil. Uncle Wyatt, the situation is dire, and we earnestly seek your assistance, Austin implored, rising and bowing deeply. I'm indebted to your father. Naturally, I won't just stand idly by and do nothing in such circumstances. Whatever you require of me, just say the word, Wyatt declared without hesitation. Great, with your support, we will definitely be able to overcome this challenge, Austin exclaimed with a sense of relief. He then outlined his plan to Wyatt in detail. Austin's plan was simple. The initial approach involved diplomacy before resorting to force, primarily focusing on persuasion and amnesty. If the 4 rebelling sovereigns were willing to submit to the monarchy, they would be pardoned and their existing positions of power safeguarded. However, if diplomatic efforts failed, they had to resort to force to suppress the rebellion. In that case, the monarchy would join forces with the other 4 sovereigns and West Lucosia as allied powers to eliminate the traitors and quell the rebellion. If war became inevitable, then a swift resolution would be their best option. After hearing Austin's plan, Wyatt nodded solemnly and said, The power and influence I have today were bestowed by your father. Whether it's to deploy troops to quell the rebellion or offer my own life, I will not hesitate. Uncle Wyatt, your commitment is deeply appreciated. With your support, we will certainly overcome this crisis, Austin responded, offering more than mere words. Wyatt took out his military insignia and handed it over. This is my Marquis badge. With it, you can command the troops of Summitville at your discretion. Austin hesitated for a moment, not expecting Wyatt to hand over his insignia without hesitation. The act itself spoke volumes about Wyatt's loyalty. Don't refuse. In times of urgency, extraordinary measures are necessary. My Marquis badge will help your plans, Wyatt insisted, pressing the insignia into Austin's hands. Uncle Wyatt, your sense of duty is truly admirable. Expressing his gratitude, Austin affirmed, Once we get through this hurdle, I'll make sure to have a proper visit to convey my gratitude. All right. Enough with the formalities. Time is of the essence. I won't keep you here any longer. Go now. Wyatt waved his hand. Farewell, Uncle Wyatt. With a respectful bow, Austin left with his entourage. Their first stop of the night unfolded unexpectedly smoothly. In just half an hour, they secured Wyatt's support and obtained a Marquis badge to command his troops. It would be great if they could maintain this momentum. It's been years since I last saw Uncle Wyatt, even though he's doing better. His loyalty remains, Austin mused as they left Wyatt's residence. Rufus has been in control of West Lucosia for many years, earning the people's respect. While a few ambitious individuals have lurked within, the majority are loyal and valiant, Dustin remarked. You're right. With Father's authority, if he had continued to govern West Lucosia, there would have been lasting peace. What a pity. Austin shook his head. Whether it was Julius or the four rebelling sovereigns, West Lucosia remained peaceful over the years due to their fear of their father. Now that their father had passed away, these individuals had nothing left to fear, and their ambitions were beginning to surface. Where to next? Dustin asked. Based on the optimal route, our next destination would be Quintonia to meet the Marquis of Ravenwood. Tyrus Storm, Austin responded. Let's go, Dustin nodded. Without another word, they got into the car and left. The four sovereigns each guarded a city and had substantial military forces under their command. In the past, they only answered to their father and no one else. With Rufus' demise, it would not be easy to persuade the four sovereigns to send their troops to quell the chaos, given their status. Tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. In the early hours of the morning, their vehicle entered Quintonia and finally stopped before the Marquis of Ravenwood's mansion. Tyrus Storm, the Marquis of Ravenwood, was also an influential figure, having fought alongside Rufus in his youth. Tyrus was etched with scars that had earned him his current glory. Austin, I'm familiar with Tyrus, and like Wyatt, who is loyal and valiant, he's more shrewd. With the mind of a savvy businessman, convincing him to offer full support won't be easy, Dustin cautioned. Logan, I know what to do. I'll do whatever it takes to persuade him, Austin declared determinedly. Good. Execute your plan when the time is right. Dustin nodded. Austin approached the mansion and took out his identification badge, prompting a stir. Then, the guards swiftly ushered them inside. Seated in the main hall, attendants graciously presented pastries and tea. After a brief wait, the Marquis of Ravenwood, Tyrus, finally entered wearing his pajamas. Oh, Your Highness, what brings you here? Tyrus feigned surprise upon seeing Austin. Uncle Tyrus, my apologies for the early visit, but I have something urgent to discuss. Austin apologized. Your Highness, are you facing difficulties? Tyrus asked. Indeed, significant difficulties. Austin proceeded to explain the entire situation in detail. After listening, Tyrus was shocked. What? Prince Rufus was assassinated, and the Northern Four Sovereigns are rebelling. The situation is unexpectedly dire. I wouldn't have troubled you if the circumstances were different, Austin stated. This is indeed a significant difficulty. Tyrus grimaced. After thinking about it for a moment, he asked, Your Highness, what is it that you require of me? Uncle Tyrus, the Northern Four Sovereigns have shown ingratitude by openly rebelling. I've sent people to negotiate. If they're willing to submit, all will be well. But if they remain stubborn, we must prepare for the worst. When that time comes, I hope you can deploy your troops and stand with the monarchy to quell the rebellion. Austin bowed. I see. Hearing this, Tyrus wore a troubled expression. Your Highness, I'm getting old. I just want to live my remaining years peacefully. I'm afraid leading troops into battle is beyond my current capabilities. Uncle Tyrus, with your reputation and the military strength at your disposal, you need not personally engage in the conflict. I only seek your support for the monarchy in suppressing the rebellion. Austin compromised. Your Highness, it's not that I'm unwilling to help. It's just that war entails casualties, and my resources are limited. I have plans to secure the future for generations to come. Exhausting them now leaves me with nothing to pass down. Tyrus shook his head. Uncle Tyrus, if West Lucosia falls into chaos, I'm afraid even Quintonia won't escape unscathed. Austin continued solemnly, under the circumstances, everyone will be affected once trouble arrives. Your contribution won't only be for the monarchy but also yourself and the peace of future generations. Austin's words were powerful and filled with emotion. The potential chaos in West Lucosia would undoubtedly affect not only the 8 sovereigns but also numerous high-ranking officials and millions of citizens. They all grew up in West Lucosia, and it was where their roots were. That was why anyone with a sense of patriotism could never turn a blind eye. Your Highness, your reasoning is sound, but I'm a timid and cautious person. I tend to weigh the consequences carefully. What if my forces suffer heavy losses while quelling the rebellion? What happens then? Tyrus appeared hesitant. Uncle Tyrus, I can assure you that if you incur any losses, we will compensate you twofold, Austin declared earnestly. He understood that Tyrus was seeking tangible benefits. After all, this was a gamble with his entire wealth, and the potential losses could be substantial. His actions seemed reasonable, given the circumstances. Your Highness, it's not that I don't trust you, but in matters like this, words alone may not suffice. Tyrus said, sending a hint. Uncle Tyrus, feel free to ask for anything. I won't refuse you as long as it's within my means, Austin asserted confidently, showcasing his sincerity. Very well. Your words have reassured me. Tyrus smiled faintly. In truth, I don't seek soldiers or wealth. My only concern is for my daughter. She's 25 years old this year and hasn't found a suitable match. It would be a blessing if she could marry you. Your Highness, marry me. Austin raised his eyebrows in surprise. That's right, Tyrus nodded with a smile. My daughter, Danielle, may not be the most beautiful, but she possesses charm and intelligence. If you marry her, I believe you'll gain an excellent companion. He possessed wealth and influence and only lacked supreme power. The recent demise of the Prince of West Lucosia made Austin the likely successor to the throne. If his daughter married Austin, she would become the Princess of West Lucosia, elevating Tyrus' status significantly. By then, he would be the strongest among the 8 sovereigns. Uncle Tyrus, I don't exactly have the best reputation. I'm afraid it might be unfair for your daughter, Austin said tactfully. Your Highness, your talents in both literary and military affairs are exceptional. My daughter has admired you for a long time. Marrying you would be an honor for her. Tyrus continued earnestly, once our families are united through marriage, we will stand together through thick and thin. Regardless of the challenges the monarchy faces, I will offer my assistance wholeheartedly, even if it means sacrificing my life or risking my entire fortune. Austin frowned slightly, unsure of how to respond. Tyrus' conditions had exceeded his expectations. Your Highness, since Sir Storm is unwilling to support us, perhaps we should consider other options, Destin whispered. Although Tyrus' assistance was crucial, Destin didn't wish to gamble away his brother's happiness. Your Highness, please take your time to think about it. I'm not forcing you, Tyrus said with a shrug. There's no need for that. I agree. After a moment of contemplation, Austin finally nodded. Can I take your word for it? Tyrus' eyes lit up. I may not be a gentleman, but I'm a man of my word, Austin said solemnly. This is great. I admire your commitment, Your Highness, Tyrus exclaimed. Let's not delay any longer. To enhance our cooperation, how about we formalize the engagement now? Someone bring me some paper and pen. Tyrus was impatient and immediately ordered his men to bring him these materials to establish a marriage contract. After all, an opportunity like this was extremely rare. Once his daughter married into the monarchy and became the future princess, his grandchildren could possibly become the next prince of West Lucosia. This gamble was advantageous to him, no matter how he saw it. It would bring him unprecedented wealth and power. Wait, Your Highness, this is a major life event. You must think about it carefully, Destin reminded Austin. Tyrus frowned, feeling displeased. How dare a mere guard voice their opinion? He should be well aware of his place. Tyrus would have disciplined him much earlier if it had been his men. It's fine. I've already made a decision. Austin smiled at Destin and said, Uncle Tyrus' daughter is a beautiful and intelligent woman. I consider myself fortunate to be able to marry her. How could I possibly refuse such a generous offer? Your Highness, you have a discerning eye. Tyrus praised him. Your Highness. Destin was about to speak when Tyrus interrupted him sternly. The nerve! How dare you interfere in your master's affairs? Show some respect. Destin narrowed his eyes, ready to retort, when Austin raised his hand to stop him. All right, that's enough. I've made my decision. Without hesitation, Austin put down his signature on the marriage contract. Destin sighed, feeling a twinge of distress. His younger brother had matured. Considering the broader implications of his decisions, it was a level of maturity that Destin believed surpassed even his own. Uncle Tyrus, with the marriage contract in place. I hope you can fulfill your promise, Austin said. Don't worry, Your Highness. We're family from now on. No matter the challenges the monarchy faces, I will offer my assistance, Tyrus promised as he patted his chest.